She spent a number of years building out sales organizations at both Box and Salesforce. So this is a real talent we've got in the room. She's just moved to London. Welcome her with open arms. Lauren, you're up. Thank you.
Thank you for the warm intro. Like James mentioned, I'm VP of Sales for TripActions in EMEA. And I'm here to chat with you about sales career pathing and why it's important and how do you implement it. And why I think I'm potentially qualified to talk about this topic. One, I'm a product of the career path. So I actually started my sales career as an SDR at Salesforce.com, worked my way up the ladder, and I've since implemented similar career paths at both Box and then most recently TripActions. So why is it important? We are all sales leaders or aspiring sales leaders here, and we want a team of high performers. And as more and more generations come into the workforce, they're not motivated by just money. Of course, we're sales reps, so we are motivated by money, but there are new motivations, and career pathing is a great way. As your reps really think about performance and what they want to do next, they see this as a step potentially into account executive or into management. They love to update their LinkedIn profile. I mean, it's just the best thing ever when you see someone's been promoted and you just get 1,000 likes and all the comments. It even populates for you to put congrats. So, it's really a great recognition for them, and it's really a secondary motivator for them to continue to perform. Secondly, culture. We're all trying to figure out how do we bring culture into specifically our team, but our organization. How do you get your team to drink the Kool-Aid? How do you really get them excited to come to work every day? One way is obviously hiring, their friends and creating this nice environment for them. But, they're going to bring their friends in if they're able to tell them about, potentially the next step and what the enablement and career pathing looks like at your potential company. And lastly, retention. We as sales leaders spend so much time and so much money enabling our reps. So whether it's new hire onboarding, consistent sales enablement, sales coaching. I don't know how many times my CRO asked me, were you on that call? Were you on that onsite? Yes. Did you listen to the gong, the chorus, whatever it is? Yes. And we spend a ton of time. And I think time as a sales leader is one of those really, really, valuable assets. And the last thing you want to do is invest all of this time into your reps to have them leave your organization. So, giving your team that extra motivator to kind of stay with the company and stay behind you because, you're going to get them to that next level, get them to, where they want to be. So how do you implement this thing? It's going to vary differently at every single organization. And, the first thing you really need to look at is where in the sales cycle do the motions start to change? One area, really easy to kind of quickly look at is specialization. And when I joined TripActions, we had hybrid SDRs. So they were managing inbound leads, they were doing some outbounding, some account acquisition, contact acquisition, you name it, they did it, went to events, etc. And when you start to look at the specialization of SDRs, you start to realize which kind of efficiency gains you can potentially get from this. And when we look at our inbound SDR at TripActions, we call them MDRs, they're managing a different set of tools. We use Drift for chat. They're responsible for a 5-minute SLA to put an activity on every single lead. They use SalesLoft to update the lead and contact status so that marketing gets that continuous feedback loop. And that's a very different motion than what an outbound SDR does. They're actually spending a ton of time research, reading 10Ks, looking at the company and about us before they ever even make that first call. And they use different tools. They use LinkedIn Sales Navigator. They're using Salesforce. And so, you right there, just by specializing your SDR org, you've just now created potentially 2 career paths. The other area to kind of start to look at things is segmentation. And I talked about where does the sales motion start to change? But in the sales cycle, where does it start to get more complex? where is it a necessity for you to actually pair up your, more seasoned account executives with that more complex sales cycle? That's where we start to see multi-threading. You need executive sponsorship. You're using, joint evaluation plans. And this is a very set skill set that you've typically only learned if you've been, selling for a little while or, have that experience. So at TripActions and at Box as well, we realized, quickly we had, one large kind of mid-market segment and everybody sold to everybody. And what we realized is our commercial segment was actually much more of that velocity play. We were closing deals in about 28 days. We could do 1 to 2 call closes, and it was much more about like managing your pipeline and making sure the stages were correct to be able to handle that velocity play. But when you looked at mid-market, it was typically 3 to 6 months. It was multi-threaded. You were having to pull in, the CFO, the CEO, trying to get executive engagement, maybe even investors. And so it definitely requires that more seasoned account executive. So just right there, by looking at specialization and segmentation, you've now created potentially 4 different roles. And in each layer, you're also enabling on the team. I talk a lot about, the tool belt or the toolkit, whatever you want to call it in your organization. But at each step, you're actually layering and you're enabling your sales team to grow as they grow within your organization. And lastly is about the process. So you figured out you need a career path, but how do you do it? Does everyone just go through, and once you've been an inbound SDR, you get to be outbound and then commercial and then mid-market and enterprise, et cetera? Do you start to put interviews in place at those gates? Does everyone pass? Do you hold some people back? These are all different kind of decisions that you have to make within your organization. So really kind of thinking about what that entry and exit criteria looks like. Is it all skill set based? Is it time frame based? Is it a combination of the two? So in summary, we've talked about the why, so creating that high performance team, talking a little bit about culture and retention, and then how do you actually do it? So really looking at your sales motion and understanding where they differ and if specialization or segmentation could come into play. And then also defining what that process looks like. What does that entry and exit criteria look like along the way, and what's right for your organization? So, like I said, I've done this at Box, I've done this at TripActions. I will be here later, so happy to chat with anyone if you want to run ideas or just chat about career pathing in general. So thanks.